For the chosen people of Israel, there were two defining moments in their history, the Exodus and the exile. The Exodus, of course, was their being freed from slavery in Egypt. The exile was their being taken prisoner into Babylon. Their banishment from the promised land and God's restoration of them as the chosen people marked a defining moment in their relationship with God. For the Israelites, exile was being separated from home, from security, from comfort, from all that God had promised to them, from their family, from their roots and their history. It was a traumatic experience for them and one that changed them as it was supposed to. In truth, that experience of exile is not so foreign to us. We know it. As a matter of fact, we live it regularly. Our exile experiences are different, though. Sickness that keeps you down and out for weeks. The death of someone you love who's been a big part of your life. Maybe having to move out of the house you've lived in for decades. Being disappointed with the way things turned out for your family. Recognizing every day the limitations that aging puts on you. Those are the kinds of exile that we know. And even to these exiles, Jesus brings good news. In fact, there's good news here today for everyone who knows the experience of exile in one way or another. And we have a living example of that in the gospel story we just heard. Bartimaeus knew the life of the exile. He knew what it was like to be separated, pushed aside, left behind. He knew what it was like to be left sitting by the side of the road. It is to those on the side of the road who need Jesus most, and it's they who recognize him most when he passes by. Bartimaeus is a living example of how Jesus can do this for us. Master, I want to see. Bartimaeus sees Jesus for who he really is, not simply a source of healing, but also a source of salvation. He sees in Jesus and finds in Jesus a different life. He walks away from his former way of life. He never looked back at that blanket that he had sat on for so long. He threw it aside like trash. He didn't glance wistfully at the place where he had sat for so long as a beggar, accepting whatever few cents someone might toss his way. Bart left behind, in a sense, what he had depended on before. His is a different kind of conversion story. He didn't really turn away from a life of sin, as far as we know, as others had. He wasn't knocked to his knees by a vision from heaven like St. Paul would be. What he left behind was something else. What he left behind was his crutch. He was ready to walk away from that, though. Ready to walk away from the life he had known to begin a new life with Jesus. As the gospel makes clear, after Bartimaeus was healed, he didn't go back home. Nope, he went down the road with Jesus. So here's the challenge for us, a challenge that's a little different today than it usually is. This challenge is not to be ready to sacrifice so much, to give up your money, or your house, or your clothes, or whatever. Now Jesus asks you to give up something else, your beggar's blanket, your crutch, if you will. Can you trust Jesus enough to leave behind that thing that you always have fallen back on as an excuse, to not participate, to not take a risk, to not be a part of something new? This is an invitation to walk away from Babylon, as we heard about the chosen people. It's a call to throw aside your beggar's blanket and follow Jesus. Hurry before he passes by.